Hey y'all, it's Amanda and this is my Texas Zone 8 garden, and it is almost 8 o'clock at night and it's still 95 degrees outside. But we're gonna go ahead and go to battle and we're gonna get some stuff planted in the garden, including tons of new calla lily bulbs. Okay, it is hot, brutally hot. I already spent 5 hours outside at a baseball tournament for my son. It's rough. And we are just at that part of the summer where it's just really hard. So I can either garden first thing in the morning or I can garden at the very end of the day. And since we did baseball this morning, I came home, took a shower, took a nice nap, drank lots of water, and now I'm ready to go for gardening outside. So I am in the backyard area right here. This area faces west. You can see the sun streaming in at me as it's getting to setting levels. And this garden right here has a lot of perennials on this side of it. And what I did last year is I converted this one to more perennials. Originally, it had a whole bunch of amaranthus and celosia in it that reseeded itself like crazy. And in order to combat that, I went ahead and put down landscape fabric, which is fine for just a quick solution for a year or two. But I don't typically leave landscape fabric for a long time in a garden where I'm really wanting to grow a bunch of stuff. If it was just like shrubs or something, I'd have no problem putting landscape fabric and leaving it there for years to come. This one was more about smothering the seeds, allowing them to sprout, allowing them to die, and then of course they weren't able to reseed. So the idea is that now that it's been over a year, about a year and a half, I want to go ahead and start pulling back the landscape fabric and go ahead and planting in this area. And where we're going to be planting is a ton of calla lily bulbs and one new garden phlox that I got from Bluestone Perennials. So let's go ahead and start with pulling back the fabric and we'll go from there. Okay, this I'm going to move. This is a rose right here. I forget what variety, and of course it doesn't look like I've labeled it. I'm going to go ahead and move this for right now to make room. Now back in this area is where I've got all my basil planted. Let me get some gloves. I got one of those new dicing things where you like put an onion and then you like close the lid and it dices the onions up. Super cool, except that I'm dumb and I touched like the little gridded chopping thing and I sliced up my left hand. So I definitely need to make sure that I'm using what do you call it, gloves today. So basically I'm going to come down here and find the edge of my fabric, and I don't think it's going to be super easy to pull up, and I think I'm going to have to really pull it up in segments. So I'm going to start by just shifting a lot of the mulch this direction so that I can see kind of like what's going on back here. All right, and then that's going to allow me to kind of just come in here and see what I got going. And basically, I'm going to have to peel back the fabric, and I've got it staked down in a few places, so I'll pull up the stakes as I'm going. Probably do not have proper shoes on for doing this work. And I'm going to just start peeling back the fabric a little bit at a time, and then coming back and shifting the mulch back over it as I'm pulling the fabric. Now, like I said, this was put down as a temporary solution. For dealing with the celosia and amaranthus seeds. And all of my drip lines are on top of it, which in hindsight sounded like, that sounded like a good idea, but now it's definitely really hard to take the landscape fabric off. But I'm also wondering, instead of trying to pull the whole thing up, I should cut it into pieces. Let's try that out. go. Here's a piece. That's what we want. So it looks like just ripping it little pieces at a time might be the way to go. Oh man, there's some big worms. Let me get this. So many worms. There we go. So let's talk about what landscape fabric can potentially do to a garden. It can be a weed barrier. I don't necessarily consider it a barrier for grass. I find that grass just goes right through it, unless you have like the really like industrial strength commercial grade stuff, which that'll last a lot longer. But the big thing about landscape fabric is it can compress your soil and kind of mess with the quality of your soil. What happens is, even though that this is all like perforated, right, the soil particles get stuck in the perforations and clog them up. So you really can't get as much nutrients and water going through it. Now, that's over a long period of time. You can use landscape fabric for a couple of years and be fine. As a long-term solution, in the type of garden that I have, it's not really what I need. But that's not really what I put it down for. I put it down for to block all of those amaranthus seeds and all that. So they all sprouted a year ago, covered them all up, and they've all died. They all died. And they didn't have the opportunity to put on new blooms and create new seeds. So this works for me. This worked for my situation, which works fine. But obviously, there's something to be said about having to come in and tear this all up, right? And we'll talk about some of these plants that I've got in here. Here's a big piece. Okay. Okay. Got it all out. I'm going to spend a little time spreading out. I'm going to use my hands. Spreading out this mulch and soil again. It did break one of my mums, but in all honesty, that guy needed to be trimmed back. All right. Sweet. Let me just straighten out the drip lines. Okay, we're good. Couple of quick things. This mum right here is struggling. So I'm actually going to cut it back above some new growth. Let it refocus. Maybe its variety is called Oriental Night, if I'm correct. There we go. Sweet. I'm happy to have that done. I don't see any little seedlings coming up. I don't see anything to be overly concerned about. Lots of worms, tons of worms. But also the other thing that can happen with landscape fabric is like I put mulch on top of my landscape fabric, which most of us would naturally, right? But by doing that, you build up that mulch over the years. That mulch begins to break down and it creates its own soil. And then you have a new place for weeds to grow on top of the weed barrier. So, you know, While this situation, I did have to, dig it up and restart on it. I think it really served its purpose for me not having to pick thousands, and I do mean thousands, because amaranthus and celosia reseed everywhere, that I didn't have to pick up thousands of seedlings over the last year and a half. So feeling really good about that. Let's talk about what we're going to be placing. So one of the first things I want to put back here, and I want to put it right back here in this corner, and it's a tiny itty bitty little plant over here. It is called a Gianna Phlox, and it is a beautiful garden phlox, beautiful pink flowers that grows to about 3 to 4 feet tall. So it'll be something really nice at the back of this landscape. I think it'll look really good. It gets about 2 to 3 feet wide, excellent for cut flowers. Blooms late spring into summer. It is a perennial in my area. I think it's perennial in zones 4 to 9. It likes clay soil. Awesome. This is lots of clay soil in my area, and even though I've amended this bed quite frequently, it still has quite a bit of clay soil. I got this from Bluestone Perennials during their half price sale, so I'm really excited to get it tucked back in here. But we're going to go ahead and start by planting that one in this area. And of course, it does not look like much right now, y'all. Okay, it is a brand new plant, and it does not have a lot going for it at this point. But by getting it in and make sure it's well watered throughout the summer, it should be good. Let me bring y'all in closer real quick. Okay, it is right by an emitter, so it will get plenty of water as needed. I also have, with Bluestone Perennials, you can see the roots grow just right through the coco core. So super easy. I'm just going to tease these roots out just a little bit. And so I'm going to leave the coco core in place and go ahead and get this planted. Just like that. And I did add rose tone because that's what I have on hand. All right, let's talk about what I've got going here next. A lot of these are calla lilies that my father dug out of my parents' yard and gave to me. And I don't actually know what variety they are, but I went ahead and potted up all of these in containers just to get them going. And you can see that they are more than ready to get out of their containers. They put it on lots of beautiful leaves that have a speckled kind of look to them, which is absolutely beautiful. And calla lily leaves are actually great in arrangements as well as the blooms. Now, because he gave me all of these calla lily bulbs, I divided a lot of them up. So I don't actually expect a lot of them to actually bloom this year because I really condensed and broke them down. And I'll put a link to the video below that shows all those calla lilies. I'm not sure what the particular variety is. It kind of puts off like this orange mango bloom, and it's tall, like 3-foot blooms. So a big, nice, lush plant. And these do come back year after year for me. And I have a lot. So what we're going to do is we're going to start back around the Gianna Phlox, and we're going to put mostly these type of calla lilies back there, and I'm going to plant them pretty dense, about 6 to 8 inches apart. I'm hoping that this whole area gets filled in, and then over the years it suppresses all weeds underneath it because it will grow so thickly. And I would love to pull foliage from this for my flower arrangements, and then of course have the beautiful kind of mango orange blooms when the time comes for cutting. Now, since I pre-potted these up, they have already been planted about 1 to 2 inches below. It's about 2 inches below the surface of the soil. And with that being said, when I plant this in the ground, I'm going to plant it even with the soil because it's already planted to the appropriate depth. So the top of the soil will be the top of the soil in the garden, which I think will work really well. So let's go ahead and knock that out. I'm going to be doing adding rose tone to these. I don't have any bulb tone on hand, but if you wanted to, you could use that. You could use plant tone. Any kind of slow release fertilizer that's good for flowers would work really well in this situation. So let's go ahead and start with this, and then I'm going to show you the other calla lily bulbs that I've already started, and some of which have already bloomed. Now, I did want to say that I've grown bulbs in this bed before. Even though calla lilies don't like clay soil, this has enough amendments that I think it'll be all right. I have grown calla lilies in this bed. I have grown gladiolus in this bed, grown quite a variety of plants over the year in this bed. So I do feel confident in putting them in this space, even though I've got clay soil. As remembering back to when I first dug this garden, started this original garden, and I was digging in the soil to kind of get rid of a lot of the clay, and I kept running into this thing. It turned out to be like a 4x4 that was like 6 feet long under here. I ended up digging up this entire 4x4. That was before I started recording videos. I wish I had that. Oh my God, it took me like a day and a half to dig it up. It was ridiculous. In hindsight, I probably could have just left it. Probably didn't have to dig it all the way up, but oh man, that was rough. Okay, those look spectacular and they're not even filled in. So imagine in 2 to 3 years, this whole space just filled in with lush 3-foot tall calla lilies. That'll be pretty amazing. And then I keep thinking of all the foliage that I'll be able to utilize as well. That's one of the things I love about calla lilies. It's not just about the blooms, it's also about the foliage, which does a really, really great. Got a little bit of eucalyptus coming, which does really, really great in flower arrangements. So now I still have a few of those calla lilies left, but let me reach over here. I have a whole tray of different calla lilies that I also started from bulb as well earlier the year. I have some mixed varieties which have already come and bloomed. And the mixed varieties were like, I wasn't sure what those varieties were going to be. So I've got some mix. Also got some gold crown, which is putting on much shorter. And all of these varieties are much shorter varieties. So the idea is that I want to kind of come in front a little bit and stagger them with these. So I got a couple of the gold crown, which is supposed to be a beautiful yellow tone. Then I also have some royal plum, 2 royal plum, which have already bloomed and gone already. So I'm going to get those planted. And then after I get those planted, I'm going to see what I have left on the larger ones. And on the larger ones, I might plant a few more, or I might just post the rest on my garden group. I have a garden group in my neighborhood, and see if anybody wants to take those, because obviously I have quite a few at this point in time, which is awesome. What did I do with my hoary knife, y'all? Okay, sweet. So let's start with these. And once again, remember we've got the tall varieties towards the back, and we're putting the shorter varieties towards the front, so that they don't get lost over time. It looks nice. It looks nice now. And ideally I would have had these planted a month ago, 6 weeks ago. Because typically you're going to plant calla lilies after your last freeze. I should have planted these a while ago. It is what it is. Like I said, I have no expectation of blooms this year, especially now that I've just transplanted all of them. What we are going to do is we're going to go ahead and get these watered in well. I'm going to place that potted rose back and go ahead and run a drip line up to it, and then we will be done for the day. Okay, there we go. So I need to run drip to this rose. As of now, I've just been utilizing a lot of the rain that we've been having. So I have an old piece of drip line, and I save this quite frequently. This has 6-inch, or actually 12-inch emitters. So this has actually 3 emitters on here. It is closed at the end, has a goof plug at the end, so no water can get out. And then it has a little bit of clothesline on this side. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a straight line barb, and then add on new line to extend it, just like that, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and cut this new line, put a straight line barb on the bottom here, and I've got existing drip line down here that I'm just gonna poke a hole in, and I'm gonna go ahead and poke this hole in. Poke it into this existing drip line. All right, simple as that. Then I can just come around with the drip line, work it around the base, and then I'll use a stake to hold it in place. So now this rose will get watered. So let's go ahead and water all of our plants. Let's take a look. I love it already. I love it, y'all. All right, so let's take a minute to envision this. The Gianna garden phlox coming up here, kind of a deeper pink, dark green glossy leaves. Mango orange calla lilies about 3 feet tall with all these amazing foliage, speckled foliage. And then a series of miniature callas across the front. And then over here I also have a couple of varieties of heirloom mums. This right here is my fireworks solidago, which looks like it's going to bloom this year. We've got the Don Juan rose with a little bitty Jackmani clematis at the base to grow up through it. And another rose, I believe this is either a piece or a Chicago piece. There's still room for more. I can put more plants there. This bed is improving. I'm really excited about this bed as it continues to come along. Had some mishaps over here that I'll talk to you guys about. We actually had the French drain installed. So I'll have that in an upcoming video talking to you about all of that, the thoughts behind it. I do have a bunch of calla lilies left over. I think I have 9, so I'm going to go ahead and post those on my garden group, see who wants them, and get those taken care of before I head out of town. All right, you all, I hope you enjoyed today's video. It ended up being much cooler than I thought it would be, which is a blessing. Very excited about that. Very excited to get this stuff in the ground. Like I said, it should have been in the ground a while ago. It's not going to look pretty this year, but that's okay. It's going to look pretty in years to come. I think instant gardening isn't a real thing. It's important to think about when you're watching different people garden. Some people have access to like very mature plants, but it's, you know, you really need to remember a lot of times when we're putting plants in, it takes 2 to 3 years for these plants to mature enough that they're in their full size grown. I typically buy smaller plants. That's just kind of how it is for me. All my roses are typically bare root. All the basil back over here I grew from seed. This is a surprise Rudbeckia that reseeded itself there, which is exciting. But these Callas in a few years, they're going to be ridiculously stunning. So I'm really looking forward to that. All right, you all, as always, make sure you like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Every time you like and comment helps grow my channel so much. Plus, I also just like hearing from all of you all each day. And make sure you check me out on my Instagram, on my social media outlets, including Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. As always, she's a mad gardener or decorator or anything else that she wants to be. Thanks, y'all.